Hi guys, today we're going to be going over the Answerdash case study. My name is Jake.
My name is Ryan.
My name is Erica.
And my name's Kalen.
So first we'll be going over the agenda overview for today. So first we're going to start off with a summary and overview of the case. Secondly, we'll move into the presentation of the problems. Third will be the solutions that we've come up with. Four will be the recommendation of which solution we think is best. And lastly will be the key takeaways. So now I'll hand it off to Ryan, where he'll give us the overview of the case.
Oh, for the overview, Answerdash was co-founded by Jacob O. Wobrick and Andrew J. Ko. Answerdash is a self-service customer support solution that aims to improve the online user experience by allowing visitors to find answers directly by interacting with website elements instead of just using traditional keyword-based searches. The reason for that is that the company's main focus is to address the problem of vocabulary problem. Basically, what that is customers may not know how to word their problems correctly onto the search bar. And because of that, they might not get the problems answered. And so Answerdash um, is trying to fix that issue with its more integrated website elements that helps customers easily find and address their problems. So this is more of like a visualization of the timeline from when it started to um, its current. So back in 2010, the idea of Answerdash was created by Jacob and Andrew, and it was initially introduced as Lemonade with the goal to fix the vocabulary problem. In 2012, Answerdash was created based on a graduate project, and the original name was Kazao. In 2013, the company raised 500,000 in seed funding and 2 million in venture capital. Ben Bridge Jeweler was the first paying customer for Answerdash, and also in the same year, Answerdash did their pilot launch. In 2014, Kazao rebrands as Answerdash, and the company starts to notice challenges within, such as slow and expensive customer acquisitions. And in late 2014, Answerdash seeks to find revenue growth solutions. And I'll pass this back to Jake.
Thank you. So next we'll go over the presentation of problems with the case. So there were three primary problems that Answerdash faced during this case, and those were having too many stakeholders involved in the decision-making process. Second were the costs to acquire small clients in comparison to higher end clients. And lastly was that clientele served was too broad, and often the service offerings didn't align between the two companies. So these were the three key problems Answerdash took note of when they were trying to grow their company, and I'll explain them in more detail shortly. So first, there were too many stakeholders in the decision-making process. And what this means is that every time that Answerdash would invite a manager from a firm that was interested to come and look at the product and maybe demo it, see what it can do for them, this manager would be really impressed and they would oftentimes go back to their company and say, hey, we should integrate this into how we do our business. The problem was that this manager did not have enough influence or sway in the company to actually convince enough people to adopt it. And as it's mentioned on the second bullet point, you needed to convince people in sales, IT, and marketing that this would actually be a worthwhile thing to invest in. So as a result of this, you'd have this internal champion manager who had this meeting that was very satisfied with it. They'd go back to their company, say, hey, this is great. But most of the time, they would just be shot down since there's only one person championing, excuse me, Answerdash. So this was a big issue that they were facing and is a primary driver of why conversions weren't high, despite customer interest rates in the beginning. So next we'll move on to problem two, which was revolved around the costs of acquiring small clients was too high in comparison to large firms. And that first bullet point essentially is where the problem lies in that no matter whether the client was a large client or a small business, they each cost around $1,500 to actually turn into a client from a lead. And that's an issue because if you look at the pay scale at the bottom there, smaller clients only paid $99 a month, while the larger enterprise clients paid basically their amount back immediately, $1,400 or 1,500 essentially. So that would mean that smaller clients are unprofitable for over a year, while enterprise clients were almost immediately profitable within 2 months. And this is best evidenced by this little um, chart we made here. You can see the basic, pro, and enterprise, and how basic in general would not yield great results in the long run. So now we'll move on to problem 3. And that's that the clientele served was too broad and the service offerings don't align with client goals. So Answerdash's clientele initially was very large. They tried to appeal to everybody and they didn't specialize. They figured this way they could get as much business as possible, but it had the inverse effect in the end, where they didn't specialize in anything, so no one really knew what they were about or what they were great at. A great example in the case of this was their first client, Benbridge Jeweler, declining their service or to renew their service after they cited a service misalignment. So Benbridge wanted a more intimate service over the phone, and Answerdash doesn't do that. It's like a almost a digital overlay without any human interaction. So there was clearly kind of a service misalignment there, and Answerdash was wasting a lot of time and resources trying to convince clients that in reality didn't want this service or need their service, the thing they were providing. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand it off to Erica.
Thank you, Jake. So we'll look at the next slide, which is going to be solutions for these problems that have been presented. So we'll look at three main options here that Answerdash was evaluating. The first one being lowering acquisition costs, the second one being to move upstream, and the third one being to go vertical. So if we go into the next slide, I'll dive a little deeper on the first one. So for option one, we look at lowering acquisition costs by reducing the number of stakeholders involved in the decision process. Essentially, we want to simplify product messaging to really provide mid-level managers with the necessary tools that they need to present to senior management for more meaningful championing of Answerdash. So that can look like tools that will emphasize ROI, ease of use, and quick implementation. So since we're assuming that the current mid-level managers are the ones who don't have the approval, the final approval, they'll really have something that they can package up to senior leaders and present Answerdash as a tool that could be potentially implemented. However, that being said, I think that another option should be to target senior decision makers, that being directors and VPs, during prospecting. A great tool that can be used to determine who these decision makers are is LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for example. This can help salespeople make essentially a lead map where they can figure out exactly who they need to get connected to in the companies that they are prospecting, so they can ensure quicker and more meaningful interactions. And with that, also incorporating self-service tools such as product guides, videos, and learning tools in addition to the demos that are already offered will help give that customer confidence, so that way they can move it further in the approval process. And the benefits of this is faster decision making by reducing the need for multi-level approvals and lower acquisition costs. And this is done by streamlining that sales process. So right now we know that it can go up to 9 months, but as Answerdash looks to simplify their sales process in those methods that I just mentioned, this can hopefully over time shorten the sales cycle, which will in turn lower acquisition costs as well, and less need for follow-ups and things like that from the sales team. And by using those self-service tools that I mentioned, this can keep stakeholders empowered and engaged, and they feel like they have the right tools that they need to advocate properly for the product if it does require any more approval channels. And there are some drawbacks to consider here. So for example, when speaking about the mid-level managers, you can provide people with as many tools as you can, but you can't always guarantee that they'll use those tools effectively. So that's the challenge here, that we're relying on mid-level managers to really be a champion for Answerdash and hoping that they use those tools properly. And another drawback as well is when targeting senior level decision makers, there are a lot of challenges and barriers to entry, that being gatekeeping or difficulty scheduling in terms of availability, or just overall a genuine lack of interest, which is very understandable given that it's a new sales service pitch. So that's for option one. And if we move on to option two, I'll go deeper in that as well. And option two is moving upstream. So this is really just focusing on selling to enterprises. So what that is just looking at larger organizations that have higher budgets and in turn greater revenue potential. And then also building a specialized sales team that can really help and be almost like a relationship manager or a customer success manager that can help drive a relationship driven approach with larger organizations so they feel more comfortable and more equipped to make these impactful decisions in among larger organizations, such as adopting a new service and even potentially offering additional service, as mentioned with customer success and relationship management, or just other services overall that might be tailored to the specific enterprise needs, can really help strengthen the competitive advantage of Answerdash and overall boost retention amongst existing clients. And needless to say, that overall does help drive customer lifetime value, and this creates more meaningful and justified sales cycles. So what that means is right now we know that the sales cycle is up to 9 months, and that's a challenge that is being presented. However, if that sales cycle is for a larger organization that can present more revenue that will contribute to the bottom line, then it's a little bit more justified to go through all of those channels, knowing that it's going to be something that will be impactful for the bottom line, like I mentioned. And then as well, there's an opportunity to adjust pricing. So dealing with larger organizations, their needs can be very diverse. And by having these larger clients, there's more of an opportunity to scale services up depending on needs and maybe new innovations that the company has. And then on the flip side, there are some risks as well. So relying on just a few contracts can really be tricky because we never know with changing priorities or budgets in business environments, there could be a situation where there's no longer a need for a company to use and doesn't really serve much of a purpose anymore for what that company is doing. And so by relying on a few contracts to really drive revenue, it's risky and can potentially put the company in the red if one of them decides to cancel for some or for unforeseen reason. So in the next slide, I'll pass you over to Kaylin, who will go over option 3 as well as recommendations.
So for option 3, we have vertical specialization. The main focus would be to focus on specific industries. Some of the solutions that we found were to target specific industries. With that, Answerdash could focus on high potential verticals such as e-commerce, and SaaS also stands for software as a service. Whereas Answerdash's solutions address clear pain points. Some examples for that would be for e-commerce to reduce cart abandonment and to lower customer support tickets. A couple other solutions that we came across were developing vertical specific solutions, also enhancing industry specific marketing. A couple examples of those would be to use AI tools for predictive support, also enhancing UX tools for smoother online shopping, for a smoother online shopping experience. For some of the benefits that we found, we wanted to enhance the market fit, also create higher conversion rates with enhancing the market fit. Customizing solutions for target verticals better ensures alignment with the client needs. And then for the conversion rates, industry-specific messaging resonates better with potential clients. So that is going to lead to more efficient lead generation and sales. The last thing that we found for benefits was also increased credibility. increasing credibility, sharing the success stories and tailored solutions position Answerdash as a more trusted expert. So more and more clients are just going to trust this brand. And then when it comes to risks and management, some of the things that we found were overdependence on specific verticals could create vulnerabilities if market conditions do shift. So, with that being said, this relates to the market scope limitation. The risk that we see is focusing on a few verticals might limit opportunities in other areas and other sections. Another consideration that we took into account was the competitor threats. Competitors also might want to reach the same target verticals that Answerdash is picking. So the pressure and just establishing like a marketing team to compete against those would be something to look into. For our recommendation, moving on, out of the three options that we chose, we believe that the vertical specialization combined with the focus on enterprise clients would be the best path for enterprise moving forward by targeting large industries where its value proposition has already been validated, like I was saying earlier with the e-commerce and the software as a service businesses. Answerdash could align its offerings with the needs of higher value clients, expanding in that way. This dual strategy leverages Answerdash's strengths while also addressing its current challenges. Focusing on businesses in these industries allows for seamless balance between scalability, which can help Answerdash's credibility, enhance customer acquisition efficiencies, and also long-term growth. Some of our strategic alternatives that we came across were improving brand awareness campaigns, also cross-selling expansion, engaging in target marketing campaigns so as to raise awareness across, like I was saying earlier again, the SaaS, especially e-commerce verticals, developing vertical specific solutions, also accelerating sales cycles via automation and education, automated sales and educational resources to quicken the onboarding times, to also reduce the time it takes for these larger clients to commit to Answerdash. And then a couple more would be to increase allocation and to monitor and counter competitors' moves. With our big team that we said we were establishing, they are going to um, monitor competitors' moves, also develop new strategies to counteract any significant expansions into Answerdash's key verticals. So reallocating resources towards few high potential verticals to ensure better service delivery and also better success rates within these markets. And I'm going to be passing it over to Jake for the conclusion.
Thank you, Kalen. So lastly, we just want to briefly wrap up with a conclusion. So ultimately, Answerdash does have really high potential among larger clients, and we believe that it should focus on that vertical specialization with those larger end clients that are going to bring in a higher amount of money and ultimately make them more economically sustainable long term. If anything else, they should take meetings with VPs and more senior management. This is going to lead to a higher conversion rate, and that internal champion is actually going to be able to make some change within the company to accept Answerdash. Lastly, we want to focus on businesses whose service model aligns with Answerdash's services. So we're not going to waste, we would recommend at least that they don't waste their time with services that aren't geared towards sort of non over the phone uses. So we would recommend that they avoid stuff like the jewelers that they initially had that really focus on over the phone intimate customer assistance. Because ultimately, Answerdash is meant to avoid using those over the phone services with a person. So from now on, they should avoid doing that and instead just focus on those companies that really just have an online presence, not much over the phone intimate presence with their customer service. And that's going to be our presentation. Thank you guys for watching, listening, and appreciate it. Thank you.